Hey everyone. Yeah, so much going on right now, huh? With
Mm,
this election and everything going on in Ukraine, it's a lot to keep track of.
it really is.
That's why we're here though, right? To try to sort it all out at least a little. So today we're going to take a deep dive into this election and what it might mean for the US and Russia, and what it means for the war in Ukraine. And we'll talk about Elon Musk too.
Yes, Musk. It's quite a surprise to see someone like him, right? You think of him with his tech companies and SpaceX, and now suddenly he's involved in these high-stakes diplomatic talks.
Exactly. So first things first, Trump won the election.
Big news.
Yeah, and Putin already congratulated him,
Yeah.
said he's optimistic about having
Mhm.
Trump back in the White House, and said he's ready to open a dialogue.
Interesting, considering some of Trump's past statements about Russia.
Right, like that time he talked about using a U.S. submarine to attack Moscow wild.
Definitely raises some eyebrows. But yeah, that's the thing about Trump, right? Unpredictable. So Putin might be eager to work with him, but people in Ukraine are definitely worried.
I bet. Because it's not just about direct military support either. It's all the sanctions and the diplomacy that's been putting pressure on Russia. Those could all change under Trump.
Absolutely. And that's what has people so concerned.
Mm-hmm.
Then you have people like President Erdogan who actually thinks Trump could end the war fast.
Really?
Yeah, Erdogan's a pretty shrewd guy, known for being pragmatic and a deal maker. So you have to wonder, is he just being optimistic? Or does he know something we don't about Trump's ability to negotiate with Putin?
That's the big question, isn't it? And it gets even weirder when you factor in that Elon Musk was apparently on that call between Trump and Zelensky.
Right. Musk. Now that's where things get really interesting. He's been pretty vocal about the war, providing the Starlink internet service to Ukraine, which honestly has been huge for them. But he's also said some things that have made people scratch their heads, like saying Ukraine should just give up Crimea. And then there was that time he kind of mocked Zelensky for trying to raise money for the war effort.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
So what's his angle? Why is he inserting himself into these diplomatic talks?
It's hard to say. Is he trying to push for a certain outcome? Does he actually think he can help bring about peace? Or is this just Musk being Musk? You know, unpredictable and maybe a little controversial.
It definitely adds another layer of complexity to an already complicated situation.
For sure. And it makes you wonder what's going to happen next.
Yeah.
It's kind of wild to think about, right, Trump back in charge with all his talk about pulling out of NATO, and now you have Musk, this guy who's not even in government, getting involved in these peace talks.
Yeah, it really shows how much things are changing. The old rules don't seem to apply anymore. And while all this political drama is going on, the war in Ukraine just keeps getting worse.
It's awful. Like just this week, Russia hit Odessa with those drone strikes.
Yeah, Odessa, that's a major port city.
Right. And the strikes took out the power grid, caused a lot of damage.
These attacks and the fighting in the East, it's a constant reminder of the human cost of this war. It's just devastating.
It's hard to even grasp the numbers. The Ukrainian military is saying almost 706,000 Russian troops have been killed or wounded since the invasion started.
It's just mind-boggling. And there's no sign of either side backing down.
It's like everyone's waiting to see what Trump will do.
Right. And it's not just the U.S. watching this whole situation has Europe on edge. They've been increasing their defense spending significantly.
So even if Trump scales back U.S. involvement, Europe's getting ready to step up.
Seems like it, which is a pretty big deal. It could mean a shift in the power dynamic between the U.S. and Europe. And then there's the question of NATO. What role will they play? Will they get more involved in Eastern Europe? Will they take a stronger stance against Russia? These are all questions that are going to be debated for months to come.
And then there's China just kind of lurking in the background. Putin said China's not being aggressive towards Taiwan, but a lot of experts think that situation could explode at any moment.
Yeah, Taiwan's a real powder keg. If China decides to make a move, it could drag the U.S. into a conflict with them. Imagine that. Two major global crises happening at the same time. It's a scary thought.
Definitely. So where does all this leave us? We have Trump back in office with his unpredictable foreign policy. The war in Ukraine is still raging. Europe's getting more assertive.
Hmm?
And there's the potential for things to blow up with China and Taiwan.
It's a lot to take in. The one thing that's certain is that we're in a period of huge uncertainty. The old rules don't apply anymore, and understanding all the different players, their motivations, and the potential consequences of their actions is more important now than ever.
Feels like we're at a turning point now. You know, like anything could happen.
It really does. And I think the key here is to try to understand what each player wants. What are their goals? What are their limits? Putin probably wants to make sure Russia's secure and that everyone recognizes their influence. Trump, well, he might just want to shake things up, make deals even if they seem strange, And Europe, they just want to keep things stable and make sure the war doesn't spread.
So how does all that actually play out? I mean, what does this mean for the U.S. and Russia going forward? And most importantly, what does it mean for Ukraine?
Well, there's a lot of talk about what Trump might do about the war. Some people think he'll push for a peace deal, even if it means Ukraine has to give up some things. Others are worried he'll cut back on support for Ukraine, which would basically help Russia. And then there's Musk. What's he going to do? Could he be some kind of secret negotiator? Could he use Starlink to put pressure on one side or the other? It's a total mystery.
It's like we're trying to predict the future by looking at a bunch of random clues.
Yeah.
But I guess the point is we need to understand the history, the current situation, and what motivates the main players. That's how we'll make sense of this whole mess.
Exactly. And we have to remember history isn't set in stone. The choices that people make in the next few weeks and months, those choices will shape the future. That goes for leaders like Trump and Putin, but also organizations like NATO and even individuals like Elon Musk.
It's kind of overwhelming when you think about it. But thanks for breaking it all down. I think this deep dive has given us a better idea of what's at stake, what could happen, and what questions we need to keep asking as this whole thing unfolds.
Absolutely. And here's one last thing to think about. History shows us that even the best laid plans can be totally upended by unexpected events. One decision, one meeting, one seemingly small thing could change everything. So as we watch this all play out, remember that the future is being written right now, and we all have a part in shaping it.
Wow, that's a powerful thought. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Everyone stay curious, stay informed, and we'll see you next time for another fascinating exploration of whatever crazy thing happens next.